And probably as for myself, I've got all of these apps installed. Who has like 4 or more of these apps installed, right? And I probably check these apps at least once a day. Maybe if you remove Google+, that goes up to like 10 or 15 times a day. I'm not very active on Google+, but I do have it installed. But if you're starting out building a new product or building a new e-commerce store nowadays, it's become inevitable that you need to have a Facebook page, you need to have a Twitter handle, or you need to have an Instagram profile, and maybe a YouTube channel to connect to your users. And this is the best way to gather your loyal users together and have them share pictures about the products, share unboxing videos, for example, and basically share their experience and help spread the word amongst their friends. And best of all, most of this is free, right? If you're just creating a Facebook page or Twitter handle, if you're doing all the basic things, it's all free. So it's very, very cheap, low cost. But if you do have spare dollars, you can take it forward and hire bloggers, for example, and leverage their followers and their user base to promote your products. But that's not all you can do with these social platforms. Advertising is not all you can do. And Soltzy, which is a company based in San Francisco, has taken an innovative approach to leveraging social media channels to drive direct sales engagements. So what this platform does is that it enables any merchant who are on that platform to be able to generate sales used directly from their Facebook page or from their Instagram profiles. And how this works is that you as a merchant, once you're on the Soltzy platform, all you need to do is you post a picture of your product, for example, on Facebook or on Instagram, and people to buy the product, all the users have to do is go to that post and write a comment to it, post a comment to it with the word buy or sold. And the integration automatically sends that user an invoice to pay for that product that they're looking for. So that everything is all automatic. And this is extremely effective because the more people post about their interest in buying a particular product, the more comments you get on a post. And as a new buyer, if I'm just navigating onto that product page and I see already a lot of users who are interested or who have bought this item, I'm more inclined to do so as well, right? It's just giving me very, very subtle confidence in that product. And the company itself also reported that their brands have seen up to 30% engagement in shoppable posts. So it's definitely effective for a lot of companies that are working with Soltzy to advertise and to promote their products. And this is how the dashboard looks like for Soltzy. It's the back-end dashboard that they provide merchants with, and it provides analytics, statistics, so that you can track individual customers and also invoices as well. So on the right side, you'll see all the invoice IDs matching to each of these customers. Now, if we look at another startup called Shopbeam, which is a startup based out of New York, they make it what their intention is to make an enjoyable experience for shoppers who want to purchase products through advertisements. So a lot of times, like myself, when I see an advertisement, I literally only have a few seconds of attention span, right? I'll probably read, if my ad blocker isn't on, I'll probably be reading that advertisement for a second or two to see what it is and then just jump on to whatever I was actually doing. But if I was actually interested in the product, I would think about clicking on the ad, but there are so many complications or so many interruptions, right? Usually when you click on an ad, it either opens up a new pop-up window or it redirects you to a different site, which interrupts with what you're originally trying to do. And this is what Shopbeam wants to solve. That's the problem they want to solve. So what they do is that they, rather than opening a new window or redirecting the user, they provide a less intrusive way for the shoppers to shop and browse the catalog of products. So let me just show you how this looks. I have the website open. I think I just need to drag it here. Whoops. So this is their demo site, which you can actually find online as well. It's low resolution here. But you'll see the ads here at the top, Tory Burch here and over here. Let's look at this one. This one's a bit more interesting. So when I place my cursor above here, you might not be able to see it, but there's actually a few spots that I can click on depending on the product I want. So these are very interactive ads. And if I say I want to look at the dress here, right, it does a light box, what we call a light box. So it's not a redirection, it's not a pop-up. It's less obtrusive because I can just click the cancel here, or I can just click out of the screen to close the box itself. But the cool thing is that everything is, the whole catalog is browsable here, and you can actually check out and you can pay all within this light box. So without leaving the original site that you were on. So if I, add to bag here, and then I go checkout, everything's still on the light box. I'm still in that same site, so it doesn't really interrupt or disturb what I've been doing. I can then fill in all the information and do all the checkout straight from here. Let me just continue. Now, on to the discovery phase, right? So the other important aspect of this, the discovery phase is about bringing personalized experience or contextual experience to your users. So this is the part where you're trying to find out more about the user and leverage that information to show them items that they're more inclined to buy or something that actually relates to them. And if you think about how this works, physically, for example, if you're walking into a store that sells suits or formal wear, right? If I'm going to a suit store, I want to pick up a new suit, a good sales representative would immediately take notice of your physical characteristics, right? It would it would notice your gender, your height, your body shape, or your current style of clothing to sort of provide you with the best recommendation. Now, in the virtual world, you obviously you won't be able to see any of these physical characteristics, but you can still make use of a lot of information around them and recognize the context. So one of the best ways to do it is using the user's smartphone, right? The smartphone nowadays has so much information about the users that you can always make something out of that information and make it useful. We can see time and day, location, motion, that's all based on the device, that's easy to get. If you're getting the users to log in through one of the social networks, you can get their identities, you can get their activities on these social networks, as well as maybe friends from their social networks, right? If you think about maybe location here, what can you do with location, right? You know where the user's located, but say you have an e-commerce store, right? And you've detected that your user has actually opened your app while they're inside a competitor's store, then perhaps you might think about offering more competitive pricing, right? You might want to adjust your pricing. You might want to do things to attract your users to your platform rather than shopping at the competitor's place. Or if you're looking at motion, for example, you can figure out how active a user is over a period of time. If they're always physically active, then you might be more inclined to refer sporting equipment or sporting clothing for these users. You have things like identity, so you can get the user's gender, you can get their profile, age, all from Facebook. For example, if they log in through Facebook, you have their past activity. That's if you've been keeping track of their profile, you have past activity on what they've purchased within your product or within your shop, so that you can make better recommendations. And that's not new. I guess that's basically what Amazon and all these marketplaces do already. But the other thing is, the cool thing about social is that if you can find out if any of their friends or the people that they're connected with have also purchased that same product, go ahead and show them, right? That's going to make them feel way more inclined to buy it because someone they're connected to has that same product. And that's sort of that subtle confidence that's injected into them and makes them really, it could be a huge decision-making factor, basically. And on the sales part, you want to take notice of what we call omni-channel shoppers. So these are shoppers that shop both on the offline level and the online level. And what you can do is you can leverage information collected through both online and offline and build a connection between the two and derive some useful analytics out of that. A study by IDC recently stated that shoppers who buy from in-store and online have a 30% higher lifetime value. So they're more likely to come back to your store and continue purchasing. And building this connection also aids in measuring and understanding how one channel affects another, right? For example, does online advertisements actually help drive in-store sales? Or which marketing channel, offline or offline, is better, is more effective in reaching out to your users? And last but not least, by showing online ads or with offline inventory, so say if you're searching for a product on Google, you'll notice a lot of times that it'll tell you immediately whether or not that product is available in your nearby stores, if there's actually inventory in there. And this is the information that actually also helps make that, it's also a decision-making factor. So a company in the States, a department store called Sears, it's pretty well-known within North America. They have actually seen a 122% increase in-store visits when compared to when they're not showing these inventory levels within their online ads. So it's definitely effective. And this is why platforms like Stock Nearby or Street Hubs are so successful, because they connect users on both the online space and the offline space. So they're basically a platform that allows online shoppers to browse and shop online, but showing a catalog of products that are available around them in the nearby stores. So they work with different merchants locally to provide that type of catalog. And once a user goes on the site and finds something that they want, you'll see at the top here, it'll tell them whether it's available online or available offline as well. So they can either get it delivered or have it picked up locally. And the other big part of the sales cycle is actually the payment or the checkout experience. So this one's a big one. We'll leave it out in the later slides. I'll cover more details on the payment experience. And moving on to post-sales, obviously it's a no-brainer to reward your customers if they come back, right? So by introducing loyalty programs like what Starbucks does, what Singapore Airlines does, what SPG does, they're providing incentives for users to come back and to make future purchases again, right, by giving them a discount. Again, we'll go over this in just a few other slides. And the other part is creating advocates after sales, right? So once a customer has purchased your product, how do you turn these advocates how do you turn these customers into advocates that can share your experience, hopefully positive ones, with their friends and family? So this is a research report done by Nielsen about a year or so back, asking consumers what form of advertising they trust, right? And it's probably not surprising. You probably can't read it, actually. At the top, where it's at 92%, 92% of the people surveyed said that they trust recommendations from people they know. And the second one is the 70%, where people trust consumer opinions that are just posted online from people they don't know. So these are actually the top two drivers, or the top two decision-making factors to whether or not a consumer will purchase a product after seeing an advertisement. And this is exactly why advocates matter, because it's way more effective for an advocate to share their experience to their friends by showing ads than to show ads to them, right? They don't really trust ads, they trust what people say, what their friends say. And with the help of social networks, going back to social networks, the number of impressions through these shares are bound to increase exponentially as well. And I'm sure we'd all agree that even if we hear about how fantastic a product is from, not directly from your friend, but from a friend's friend, or even a few levels of separation deeper, it's still more convincing than just looking at an ad and not really knowing about whether or not people use it. So this in turn drives better discovery for other users, and you can then see how this cycle repeats itself over and over again. So let's get into some practical tips. So how do you actually turn your visitors into customers, right? People who are browsing on your website, how do you actually convince them to make a purchase on your website? And this actually varies quite heavily depending on what your product is about. And certainly, we probably don't have all day, especially if we're running late. We don't have all day to look into all of them. But there's one thing in common that all products or all e-commerce stores have in common throughout the whole sales process is the payment experience, or the payment or the checkout process, right? That's the part where they've added what they want onto their carts, and they're actually going to pay, and they're filling in their credit card information. So just a quick little stat here. The Black Friday weekend last year, this was a research done by a company called Barlines. They surveyed about 25 million visitors over 500 different e-commerce sites worldwide. And if we look at the stat here, it says 62% of desktop users abandon shopping carts globally, and 79% smartphone users abandon shopping carts globally. And abandoning shopping carts meaning they've got something in their shopping cart, and at some point throughout the checkout process, they decide to quit or give up their intention to buy that particular product. So there are actually two things that we can derive from that stat. One, obviously, the high percentage rates of cart abandonment. And that's definitely going to need improvement. So we're going to look into some of the things that you can enhance throughout that checkout process to prevent abandonments. The other one that we can look is that smartphones have a substantially higher percentage than smartphone dropouts than desktop dropouts. And the primary reason for this is because smartphones inherently have a smaller screen size. So it's a lot harder to navigate and to fill in your details through the mobile screen rather than on desktop. And that probably causes smartphone users a lot of frustration, and they give up, and then they decide to do it on the desktop another day. So better mobile experiences. Because of this, better mobile experiences need to also be considered as well. And as a shopper myself, over the next few slides, I'm going to go through some of the websites that I've shopped at before and trying to point out the errors that they have or the frustrations that I have with these websites. And perhaps from knowing this, if you're building your own checkout process, if you're having your own credit card forms, you might want to take note of these facts as well in order to improve the conversion rate. So first thing I hate when I go to this is a site when I was back in Canada. This is Ticketmaster.com, where we used to buy tickets to events. And throughout the whole checkout process, almost at the last step, it asks you to go through this CAPTCHA process. So CAPTCHA is basically a tool that separates humans and robots. I'm sure all of you have already experienced it, right? This is where you have to squint your eyes and make out those messy letters and try to guess the correct word. Just to be able to make a simple purchase, right? And it takes time and effort, obviously, for even a person with good eyesight to be able to go through this. So this is something that provides what we call friction to this whole checkout process. It's small, it's subtle, but it definitely adds on when you have a lot of these little things that really frustrate users. And that's what causes them to, if they don't have enough time, for example, that's what causes them to abandon it and then maybe come back another time. What you can actually do in place of that is use things like reCAPTCHA. So Google actually created this as a revamp of the old CAPTCHA experience. So it's built in advanced risk analysis backend that actively monitors and considers a user's engagement and behavior to be able to tell them apart from robots. So on the left side here, that's the most simplest case, right? If you click on the checkbox that says, "I'm not a robot," that automatically helps detect whether or not you're a robot or a human. Now, if Google isn't clear about, based on your user engagement, if Google still isn't clear whether or not you are one or the other, it still provides you with a question, but then a substantially easier questions to answer, right? Not have to make you squint your eyes and read those fine letters. Here, basically, you're just given an image of a cat, and then you have to pick another image that resembles the same cat. Now, if you don't want to use CAPTCHAs at all, you can alternatively, you can also add email sign-in registrations, for example, to validate real emails and real users, and have them validate the emails after the sign-up. So the other part that you definitely shouldn't do, this is probably I would say the thing I hate most about when I'm going to purchase stuff on websites, is asking users for registration. right? Especially when you're asking for registration before they even make that purchase. And users already spend a lot of time going through the catalog of products you have, picking what they want and adding it to the shopping cart. And the least you want to do is make them register, give them additional work before they can actually finish the last step of that process. What you can consider doing is offering social network logins. For example, these one-click logins using their social networks to simplify the process, or better yet, allow them to check out as a guest so that they don't have to register before they can buy. What you probably want to do is allow them to register after the sale has been made, right? And in this case, they're probably even more inclined to do so if they feel that from start to finish, it was a really, really easy process and they like what they purchased and they want to keep in touch, then they'll happily provide their emails and register as a user. But never require them to register before checkout. That's a really, really bad experience. And some other small, subtle things that you may or may not notice. For example, in a credit card form, what a lot of companies do nowadays is ask the user to choose the particular credit card type they're using. Now, if you're a developer or if you're familiar with how credit cards work, you can easily identify credit card types by the first few digits of the number. There's actually a Wikipedia page that lists all of these credit card types and the respective numbers as well, the starting digits. So if you can do that yourself, why are you creating an extra step for the user, right? You're creating more room for error and you're creating more work for them. So what we recommend, obviously, is for you to build that auto detection directly into your checkout forms. So let me show you there's many libraries that are available to help you do this. And let me show you one of them, which is using jQuery. This is the detection and validating credit card numbers. It's actually really, really simple to integrate. So you can't see the boxes here, but if I start typing in 41, that's Visa already. Or if I do 37, that should be, I'm not sure, maybe it's not showing up here. 55 is MasterCard. I think American Express is 37. Can't remember. But anyway, but you can detect what credit card it is, right? And not have your user choose what to actually select. And the other part is also the CVV code, right? Especially a lot of first-time purchasers or first-time buyers that are online and using their credit cards to purchase, a lot of times they don't know what that CVV code is if you're just blankly asking for it. What you can do is provide a small pop-up, for example, that gives them a further indication of where they can find that number depending on what credit card type they have. So something like this, again, there's another library that allows you to do that. And this is all on GitHub as well, so it's all open source and anyone can integrate this into their products. So basically you have this before credit card field, right? And it's asking me to do full name, date, year, and then the CVV. But with one line of code, you can actually turn that credit card form into something that looks a lot nicer. So for example, if I detect 41, it just brightly shows up it's a Visa card. And if I go down to the CVV level, it actually flips to behind and it shows you where that number is. So it makes it a lot easier for users to be able to find those numbers on their credit cards. And this is actually also different for different credit card types as well. So if I do MasterCard, or sorry, I think American Express is 37. Yeah. So if I now go to the CVV field, that CVV is at the top and it's not at the back of the card. So it just provides a better indication for the user. And the big one here that I still see a lot of websites nowadays have is unformatted text inputs. So they're asking for a credit card number here, and I can actually put alphanumeric digits in there. I can put letters in the alphabet into that field, which obviously is not valid, right? We all know it's not a valid credit card number. So why open that up for mistakes where you can actually restrict this input field to be just numbers? You can actually also restrict the input field to have a limit of characters as well, so that the users won't accidentally duplicate on a single digit, for example. So you want to be doing all of these checks for the user before they actually submit, right? As soon as they type in their number, they go on to the next field, you want to do validation on that number to make sure it's a valid number and prompt them right away instead of having them wait till they submit and then do all the checks at once. And the other one is expiration date as well. So a lot of times when I'm going to make a purchase online, I probably have my credit card out in front of me. I'm typing in my credit card number while looking at my credit card, and then I skip to the next field where it's the expiration date. And it asks me to select the month, which is in characters, in words, right? Like January, February, March, May, April. But on your credit card, most of those expiration details are in numbers, right? It's usually just 0117 or so on and so forth. So rather than having the user think about that conversion, right? 01 is January and then select January. Just make it easier for them to put in those numbers as it's seen on the credit cards. And another one is ambiguous errors. Kind of went over this as well. So if you want to show errors about something that isn't right on the credit card form, don't do it at the top of the form. Don't summarize everything for them. Show them at the actual input fields so they know exactly where to make those changes. Now, it might sound a bit difficult, after going through all of these subtle characteristics, it might sound difficult to create the perfect credit card form. And that's exactly what, as I mentioned before, that's exactly what we do at Braintree. So we enable developers and merchants to simply integrate the payments into their applications without sacrificing user experience. So we actually provide a drop-in, what we call V0 SDK. So it's a drop-in for users, for merchants and developers to easily plug in that credit card form into their website, whether it's a mobile app or a mobile website. And I'll show you some of these features in a bit as well. And our SDKs are available in every client language, right? Whether it's mobile or web, it's available on every popular server languages as well, backend languages. We'll skip this for now. So if we have time later, I can show you a demo of how this integration looks like. It literally takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get payments working in your application. So it's really, really cool. And last but not least, how to entice your customers to return to your product, right? So if we think about what we see nowadays, what vendors do nowadays physically, there's two different ways, right? One is discounted future purchases, right? To make you come back, they give you a particular discount when you're making a returning purchase. Or loyalty programs, right? We mentioned that a bit earlier, where Starbucks is trying to promote their own loyalty programs to get users to go back and buy coffees again and again by offering them free drinks. But these are just really providing incentives through value and through money, right? But what a lot of merchants and vendors miss is that user experience also plays a huge role in this whole checkout process as well. So think about, going back to that Starbucks example, think about you're a Starbucks member, but at that local Starbucks that you frequently visit, it always takes like 20 minutes for you to get your coffee. Or the sales representatives are always in a bad mood, right? If they don't deliver a good user experience, no matter what benefits or whatever they provide, what discounts they provide, you're probably not going to go back. And this part sort of relates to what we call enabling seamless experiences, right? So this is coming from applications. It's probably not the first time you've heard it, but it's all about making applications seamless. So meaning having no awkward transitions or interruptions from what the user is trying to do within your application. Great example of that is, for example, Google Now. So I'm not sure if any of you have used this before, but this is one of my favorite features within Google Now is that unlike any other calendar applications where they basically prompt you to go to your meeting that's happening in 15 minutes, say, right? They give you a 15-minute reminder. But what Google now does is actually calculates how long it takes for you to get to that meeting so that it can tell you when you should leave, right? If it takes me an hour to get to my next meeting, a 15-minute reminder isn't going to be helpful. It's basically useless, right? I'll be late already. So Google now, what it does is it detects all of your calendar events, your upcoming appointments. It predicts, well, based on the Google Map services that they have, it predicts the traffic, predicts how long it takes you to get there using your preferred mode of transport, whether that's driving, whether that's taking public transport or walking there. You can set that through app preferences, and it tells you when you should leave your current location at that right time. So as a user, I don't have to think about all of this myself. Without Google now, I'd probably have to do a lot more homework for my upcoming appointments to search where it is and how long it takes, and then calculate when I should leave to give myself ample time to get to that appointment. So these are the things that Google now does in the back, right? It's all seamless, and it only provides you information that you need to know, the end result that you need to know. And you can actually apply this to payments as well. So great example of how this is done is by Uber. How Uber does it is, if you've taken Uber before, you basically call an Uber app, using the Uber app, you call a taxi, you get on the taxi or you get on an UberX driver, and it takes you to the destination, and you literally just get off the car without having to fiddle your pockets with getting the cash out, getting the exact change amount. Everything is billed to your credit card that you set up when you first launched the application. So it takes all the complexities about actually exchanging money, and everything is simplified to just charging your credit card. And you can take this anywhere around the world, right? They're available in many, many different cities and countries, and you don't always have to do foreign currency exchanges just to be able to take a taxi ride. And the way it does is it actually uses the Braintree Vault, to be able to store credit cards. So the way it works is that when you first open the application and you set up your payment method, you add in your credit card, that credit card data is actually not stored by Uber. It's stored by Braintree inside what we call the Braintree Vault. So it's a place for merchants to use to securely store credit card data. And if you're familiar with this industry, in order to be able to handle sensitive data like credit card information, you have to be PCI compliant, which is basically a list of criteria that you have to meet in order for you to be able to handle that type of data. So there's a lot of security requirements around PCI compliancy. And because Braintree is PCI compliant, what we allow merchants to do is to leverage our compliancy and store that information on our servers, and we can provide them with a tokenized version of that credit card if they, in the future, when they ever want to charge the user that money. So they no longer have to keep asking users for the credit cards over and over again. It's all just a seamless experience. I get on a ride, I get off a ride, and everything is paid for, and I get a receipt in my email as well. And for us at Braintree and PayPal, that's what we strive to see, right? We build tools to help make payments painless for merchants to integrate, and also, but not at the expense of sacrificing user experience, right? So we place a heavy emphasis on the user experience as well, and make sure users are happy with these payment technologies that we provide with. And that covers what I sort of want to go over today. I think we have a bit of time left. Yeah, so maybe I can, are there any developers here? Oh, cool, quite a bit. So I can actually show you how this works, integrating payments into an existing application. So let me just mirror my desktop, and I'll show you, I'll actually code it out as well, so you can see firsthand how simple it is to do so. Just minimize this. So this is all on my GitHub account as well. So if you're interested to see the demo afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. Let me just run my app here. For those who maybe not too familiar with code, that's okay. You can at least see what the process is like if you were to get your developers to add payments into your application. So I'm just going to run my server here, and I'm going to just close this, and I'll show you what I currently have. So it's basically an e-commerce shop, right? It's a shop that sells a lot of the swag that I get left over. 10 minutes left. Okay, I gotta do this in 10 minutes. That's a challenge. Okay, so this is the e-commerce shop, and right now I basically have, it's a pretty simple one. So you can select what product you want, and you can click order now, but nothing really happens at this point. So what I want to do right now is I want to be able to accept payments through this e-commerce store. So let me just quickly go back to the slides here, and I'll give you a quick overview of how this flow works. So basically, this is how the communication works, right? You have a server end and you have a client end. On your server end, what you need to do is you need to send a client token to your client, and then your client will use that token and initialize the client-side SDK, which basically associates your application with your Braintree account. So you can start accepting payments through Braintree. And once you've integrated the check-in UI form and then the user clicks pay, the client SDK will encrypt all of that credit card details or the PayPal account details into a unique string that you can send to your server, and the server uses that string to charge the customer that amount of money. So from start to finish, you don't actually handle any of that sensitive data. It becomes a string, and that string, to you, it doesn't really mean anything. But to Braintree, it basically represents that particular credit card payment. So there's basically three steps that you have to do. Let me just show you here. Send the client token to your client, receive the payment method, and then create the actual payment. So what I first need to do is I need to set up, I'm just going to expand this so you can see this better. This is my application, that's the server part, and this is the UI part on the client side in HTML. So I'm using Node right now. So what I need to do is I need to set up the server-side SDK. And then I just need to copy the credentials from my accounts. This is going to be like one-hand typing. If I go to API keys, view, and then I just select Node and copy. And I go back to my application. Then there, I've got my server SDK set up. And the first part is I would need to write an endpoint. When the client requests for a client token, my server needs to respond with that client token and send it back. So I'm going to create a getter. And whenever the client sends a get token request, it's going to go into here, and I'm going to call the SDK function, gateway.clientToken.generates, and then the callback and I'm just going to send the response back. So this should contain the client token itself. So let me try to restart my server here. And I'm going to try out this endpoint that I just created. There. So now it's returned me a client token. So that step works. And the next step is actually integrating that credit card form into our application. So before we do that, let's set up the client-side SDK. So now what the client needs to do when it starts up is to get that client token and set it up. So I just include the Braintree library. And I'm going to write a script that gets the token. I'm going to store the token in a variable. And then I'm going to call Braintree. This is the client API, braintree.setup. Pass it the token. Say we want the drop-in feature that gives you that credit card form. And in the container here, I need to tell Braintree where to inject that credit card form. So the way this works is that I just create an empty div, depending on where on the page I want the credit card form to be, and I just tell the SDK to inject that form into that div. So I'm just going to make up a reference here, an ID, say my drop-in, and then this is where I'm going to build my form. And it's actually, so this is where I put in my empty div with the same ID. And for this to work, I need to wrap it in a form. So when the user clicks order, it's going to submit that post request to my server to actually make the payment. And then now I can copy and paste the button here. Just going to add it to the form itself. So let's restart the server and see how this looks now. If I go to my main site and I scroll down, so this is the credit card form that just automatically gets injected into my website. And again, all those characteristics that we were talking about with the credit card detection, I can't enter in letters. And I have the expiration date. It's inline detection as well, so as soon as it's something that's wrong, it's going to tell me. And the CVV also shows you, where I can find that CVV on my particular credit card. But now order now doesn't really do anything because you'll see here I'm going to get an error. And the reason for that is because I haven't actually created the method to handle this payment endpoint. So one last thing I have to do on my server is to set up an endpoint that handles that post request. Call it /pay, and then this is the callback. And then I'm going to store the nonce. So the nonce is that payment method string, the encrypted string. And I'm simply just going to use a server SDK and call gateway.transaction.sale, almost finished here, and pass it the amount. Say I want to charge 20 ringgits. Yeah. And tell them which credit card payment I want to charge that to. And the callback is here if the result is successful. I'm going to print the results. Oops, console.log. And then also redirect my user to a successful page. So that's basically all. And if I try this again, that was the last step here. Credit card form shows, and then I'll punch in my credit card. And then the payment succeeds. So now if I go to my dashboard, I should see that payment come through immediately in the sandbox. Right there. We just made a new record-breaking day, 22 ringgits. So basically, that's all you need to do. So on the server side, again, this is the receipt that you see with the transaction details, when it was posted. So you have all that details at your disposal as well. So that's, I think we're just right on time now. So that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, do you have time for questions? We do? No? Uh-oh. We don't have time for questions, but I'm going to be around here the rest of the day. So if you want to talk to me, I'm be more than happy to chat. Thank you.